Hey everyone, back with another dungeon speedrun breakdown. Today we're going to be talking about Warlord's Ruined Fire Team completed in 5 minutes and 15 seconds by Crow, Sickrobes, and Array. So the interesting thing about this dungeon, it is one of the most simple, it's probably the most simple dungeon speedrun in the game by like a country mile, because a lot of people make fun of it for its, very simple, kind of straightforward strategy, because it's basically just entrance, boss, jail, DSM, boss, right? Not a lot of skill expression in the encounters because of the timer mechanic, so, it's kind of take it or leave it. But I will explain, why they were able to complete this dungeon in just a mere 5 minutes and 15 seconds, one of the faster dungeons in the game. Now, you might notice something interesting here, and there is a category split, right? There is a patch category split pre 8.2.6 and post 8.2.6. You might also notice that post 8.2.6 is completely empty. Now, this was a fairly recent category split, but it is kind of necessary because this dungeon is very heavily optimized because of how easy it is to optimize. So any significant change that Bungie makes to the dungeon will probably result in it not being beatable, at least for the foreseeable future, until some new tech is found, pretty much, right? So I'll get to that when I explain the actual run itself. But for now, let's go ahead and start by looking at Array's POV. Okay, so like I like to do with dungeons, let's start with class comp, right? We have one warlock, two warlocks, and we have a hunter. Okay, now there's only one role that really needs to do any movement related stuff in this dungeon, and so that's going to be a hunter, because hunters don't need flags to skate. So, we're pretty aware of that at this point on this channel. The two warlocks, though, they're here for damage purposes, which is kind of interesting, right? So warlocks, obviously having one is good for well. Having two, why do you have two, right? So this season was episode Revenant, so everybody was using well with, well conversion and bittersweet and exteriors and that sort of thing in order to max out damage, and that was really, really good with heavy jails this season, like bittersweet, very, very good for dungeon DPS. So running two warlocks was actually optimal at the time for DPS. These days you might have like a bull charge titan because of flashover and stuff like that, but this was rendering episode Revenant, and that's why you have two warlocks and you have one hunter. Okay. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started by watching Array's hunter entrance. He is going to go ahead, he's going to jump up here, he's going to line into this nice little bounce, he's going to turn around, and he's going to make his way straight to the first encounter. Okay, so his teammates right now, Sickrobes and Crow, they're actually sitting by the edge of the map, waiting to jump off the map and die. And you see that right here, as soon as he hits this objective, Crow and Sickrobes both die. And the reason for this is, as you might suspect, is they are death warping into the first encounter. We've talked about death warping before. Basically, when you start an encounter and someone is dead in the same load zone in the joining allies region, when you start that encounter, their ghost is going to get warped to the starting location of that encounter. However, there are certain checkpoints in this game that automatically revive you. And so if they were to die too early, you've probably seen this in Ron as well, people die at a specific time. If you die too early, right, then you just get auto-res and you have to die again. And then in some cases where you need to die really quickly in order to get that death warp without being permanently dead, right, or without kind of, warping in late or something like that, it's better to die once rather than have to get respawned and then, you can't shoot the ground for a bit because you have the spawn in animation or you don't have a rocket on or something like that, right? So it's just nice to die at the right time. Their damage strategy actually doesn't require a flag at all here, so Array is just going to shoot the boss to start the encounter as quickly as possible, because the only time gate in this encounter really is at the start where he spawns his first totem and sends you into jail, because that's a little bit of RNG, right? Obviously, sometimes he will take longer. This team, I've talked to Crow, who's one of the runners on this team, didn't really mention that there's like a really good way of baiting him to spawn his totem early, but that's like one little, bit of RNG, which does affect a boss encounter. The other boss encounters in this run largely don't really have RNG, so this is going to be the main one at the start of the run. So Array, he's just going to make an orb or two off of these ads, and they're going to get sent into jail in just a second here. There you go. And so yeah, he's going to go ahead and break his eyes. And the damage strategy here is Array, you've probably already guessed, he has a Biotic Enhancements class item on, he has a Syntho class item, he's going to be doing Tractor 1-2 Punch grapple melee damage, and his teammates are actually going to be on the Ron GL, both of them are going to be on the Ron GL with Surrounded, Crow is going to be on Lumina, and Sickrobes is going to be on Navigator to make a grapple point for Array. Now they don't even capture the second totem here because they know their kill is going to be fast enough to not need it. So they're just kind of hanging around, waiting for damage to start. Array's going to Tractor, and he's going to do some pretty fast grapple melees here, doing some clean flicks, nice and fast. And the boss is dead. Okay, so pretty straightforward. encounter wise, you know, there's a lot of waiting in this dungeon, right? Even if you're a really fast speedrunner and you're doing the mechanics quickly, you don't really get rewarded for it in this dungeon, which is why it's so easy to optimize. So let's talk about the next little bit of RNG in the run, which is jail RNG, right? So Array, he quickly called out what he saw on the left-hand side there. I believe they got 5 in this run, which means 5 to the right, if I'm not mistaken. And I think the wheels in the jail automatically turn right when you first shoot them. So having as many right as possible is good RNG. So 5 out of 6 is obviously, very, very good. So they are just going to need to shoot one of the wheels an extra time to go to the left, or an extra 2 times, I suppose, to go to the left. So that is pretty good RNG. They're all going to shoot, and they are going to, right here, they're going to call done, and Array is going to shoot the lock, and boom, they're already out of the jail. Okay, so pretty chill stuff there. Array is going to do a little ground line. He's going to make his way to the second encounter load zone here. Now, right here is where the second encounter load zone boundary is. So when you hit this yellow box and he dies, this is actually a respawn restricted zone when you first enter it. So the wipe timer starts ticking, but then his teammates are going to enter the load zone and make it so it's not actually going to wipe him. Now, the interesting thing here is we've talked about DSM on this channel before, default spawn manipulation. We literally talked about it last video. But for those of you that aren't aware, every encounter, like every region in Destiny, has its own load zone. And if you block the default spawn of your load zone when you get into it and you die, and you respawn or someone revives you, you will spawn in the fallback, right? So some encounters, they have a fallback, spawn point. Not all of them do, but in this one, it's basically at Ogre, right? And so because, Sickrobes is blocking Array's revive here, and he hasn't set his spawn anywhere else, it's going to force him to spawn at the Ogre, right? Now, this is where the patch comes in, right? So we talked about how Bungie patched something, and there is now a category split on the speedrun.com site. Basically, to my understanding, what was happening is LFGs, or just casual players, were dying like in the load zone, like right at the start of maze, and maybe they were getting revived by their teammates. And because they had not set their spawn anywhere else, they would spawn at the Ogre. And when you spawn at Ogre, you can't start the Ogre right away. There is a checkpoint, an intermediate checkpoint that Array is about to hit right now. That's like right over here. And once you hit that checkpoint, then you can start Ogre, right? But I'm assuming the LFGs and the casual players didn't know this, right? And because they didn't know this, they just assumed the dungeon was soft locked, right? And so this whole method of warping to Ogre was pretty much patched, which means you have to either find a new way to warp to Ogre, which nobody's found yet, or you need to find a way to get through the maze about as fast, which is very hard because the maze is quite long, right? So pretty annoying for people who want to run this dungeon in the future, which is why there's a category split. And we're gonna go ahead and I'll show you briefly what Crow's jail damage looks like on Rathil. I mean, it's nothing that you're not going to expect really. He's just blasting away with Ron GL here, with Surrounded. Pretty straightforward stuff, nothing too crazy. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna move to Sickrobes POV now, and we're gonna make our way to the 1-2 DSM area just before we talk about Rathil. So you'll see over here that Crow and Array have both died. Crow revives Array. Sickrobes is standing in a specific spot, so he, will be able to res his teammates while blocking them off. And then he's going to die. And then because the checkpoint has been hit, and he hasn't set his spawn because he was on that tiny ledge, it's going to revive him here. Okay. So yeah, there we go. Pretty cool. This encounter, for whatever reason, when you break the blight in the middle, it doesn't remove the rally prompt right away, so you can just kind of place the flag, and as long as people rally to it in a reasonable amount of time, it won't erase the flag for them. Okay. So yeah, pretty chill stuff. Next up, something important that you should know about here, guys, by the way, is in order to get I think it's to get the captains to spawn their totems consistently, you have to break the eyes in the middle as quickly as you can. So you see here, I mean, obviously the mechanics are also dependent on you breaking the eyes, so breaking them quickly is a good idea regardless, but having everybody kind of divvy up the eyes and shoot them with something really quick, like a 140 sniper, is optimal. Okay, so Sickrobes is also on Cenotaph Mask here. He's going to go ahead and mark the ogres, so I believe it's so Array has like sword ammo for the transition, because they're all going to be using like a ton of ammo during this encounter to kill the bosses. So they managed to get the second totem from this guy. Sickrobes is going to switch to Felwinter's Helm. And yeah, again, this imminent wish timer that's present in pretty much every encounter, it's like, you know, you can't really speed up the encounters too much. You're kind of just waiting around. A lot of downtime, right? Not often in speedruns do you see people just kind of waiting around for 10 seconds at a time. That's a costly move in most speedruns, but in this one, it's pretty chill. You know, they pick up their balls. And I assume what Array is doing, he's grabbing the last ball and probably grappling to top left here. Yeah, there he is. He's grappling. And yeah, pretty chill stuff. I believe Sick Robes just powered melee to 30% debuff the boss by meleeing an eye. And then he swapped to Sanguine and stuff. And then they have some sort of weaken effect going on this boss to extend that 30% debuff. So pretty smart play to use Felwinders in that way with debuff extension. You see Xdeers here present to apply blind to the Ogre. And yeah, they're just going to one-plate this guy because of how good damage is this season. He actually goes immune here for a moment before he dies, I think, on some of the other players' screens. But they managed to eke out the damage just in time to kill him in just one plate. So pretty impressive stuff. Now they're going to swap to swords. They're going to pick up some of their Ceno bricks that were made by their teammates. And they're going to make their way to the 2-3 transition. Okay, so we're going to head back to Array's POV for our final POV of the dungeon, right? And, oh, I skipped forward a little bit too much. Sorry about that. So Array, he's on a sword. He's picked up both of his teammates' Ceno bricks. And he is making his way to the final encounter. And yeah, you only need to do like a little bit of the transition here. Array is going to swap to Salvation Script. The spawn pattern in this area is like a rectangle in the center here. So he's just going to go ahead and block it off using stasis crystals. Sick Robes is going to revive Crow instead of Crow needing to... I mean, Crow can't revive himself. I think is it a respawn restricted zone? Oh, no, it's not. Okay. But yeah, regardless, Crow having to revive himself would be a little bit slower. Sick Robes being able to revive him is the fastest possible method. So the second that Array has basically made these crystals perfect, Sick Robes is going to start rezzing Crow. Crow is going to go to the final encounter. He's going to basically spawn up at the top, and that's going to trigger an objective, which is going to auto-res both Array and Sick Robes as well. Crow is down here placing a flag. And the second everyone has rallied, Crow is going to go ahead and shoot this Blight, which he has already done. So again, yeah, this part, pretty chill. All of those eyes get taken out pretty quickly. And, you know, wizards as well. Captain spawn in. And yeah. So again, we're kind of just, you know, waiting around. Yeah, these encounters, not particularly interesting. Just kind of waiting around for the guys to spawn in. Honestly, I like this dungeon. Just, you know, when playing it normally. But as a speedrun, I don't know. I guess it's a bit nice to have a speedrun that's like very easy to optimize and is very straightforward. But yeah, any decent team basically just would not be running this for very long because it's just a really, really straightforward dungeon, right? There's not a lot of you know, BS factors to account for, and the encounters themselves have very little that you can mess up, really. So Hefnd damage, they're going to go ahead and have a tether. He's on a 6 Coyote class item. Crow and Sick Robes are literally doing the same thing as before, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if they're on Surrounded. We can check. I'm seeing blue trail, so it's probably Bittersweet, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, they're just going to one-plate this guy. Raise on Lumina. Pretty chill stuff. And I guess a little interesting tidbit is Array switches to Malfeasance for Final Stand because it's good 1 mag burst, and he doesn't have Surrounded anymore, and the boss is taken, right? So yeah, that's basically it. Timer ends on boss kill. Yeah, Warlords. Really straightforward stuff. Not really much to talk about. I'll leave the run link in the description if you guys want to check it out. But yeah, there's a reason the category is split. 1-2 is no longer possible, at least in the same way that it was before, unless someone finds a new method. Yeah, that's pretty much it for Warlords, guys. Next up, we're going to be talking about Vesper, I believe. Vesper is a lot more complicated than this dungeon, so that'll be a little bit of a longer video. And then we're going to talk about Sundered, and then finally, I'll get to move on to day 1 content and more testing. So yeah, that's it for now. I'll see you guys around, and thanks for watching.